All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to BakedHR. I am Jasmine Wilkes here with my co-host, Christina Minyard. How are you doing, Christina?
I am doing really well, Jasmine. I feel like, though, we haven't done a recording together in ages. Is that true? Or is my mind just playing tricks on me? Because, I have no concept of the calendar right now.
No, we haven't done an actual recording in probably about 2 weeks. We've, of course, done BakedHR Live on Instagram, but we haven't done a recording, I think, in about 2 weeks. So,
well, it's good to see your face again. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, eating all the sweets in my house, getting prepared to, get in the bed and after BakedHR, get in the bed and go to sleep so I can get ready for work tomorrow. But same old, watching a bunch of crime stuff on TV. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I'm doing.
Good stuff. Good stuff for a Sunday wind down.
Right. And we're coming to y'all talking about something that might get us riled up.
Oh, we didn't think that through.
I know, recording on Sundays now, maybe this is about the worst thing that we could do because it's going to get us riled up. But we're recording before BakedHR Live. So you definitely need to come and see us on the live because they will be really, really good.
And now we'll be the right amount of worked up to kick off a feisty Insta Live.
Exactly. So tonight and really this week, if you have been following us on Instagram, you'll see that we are talking about leadership. So this is our theme, our topic for the week is leadership. Some of it is like the worst leadership quotes that you've ever heard, which we've dropped that question on Instagram. So make sure you go and answer it because we want to hear what are some of the worst leadership quotes that you've ever heard. But it's also just dealing with leadership overall, dealing with leadership from the HR perspective, from an employee perspective. It's wild.
I know we're going to hear some crazy things from people who respond to that question because just my list and your list alone is already like, why did you say those things? So since we're in the middle of the week now, and by the time you're watching this, we've already seen some of these wild responses. We just wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about the bad leaders that we've had and kind of what made them bad. So I guess maybe some leadership don'ts. I don't know, Jasmine, is that what you would call it?
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to name it. We try to give some dues, but this is definitely a don'ts list. Yeah, I think that's a good way.
Well, I think that personally, especially in the positions that I've been in. So, I know that HR departments are built different depending on the organization, depending on the size of the organization. But I think my biggest challenge with leadership is I feel like I keep falling for this trap of I'm in a role where I support leadership as a primary function, but then I don't have separate leadership outside of my role to provide that HR support. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I'm articulating what I'm trying to like. Then what happens when I need some leadership guidance? Mm-hmm. Because I'm not getting that because they see me as a function for them, not them as a function for me. Sometimes I don't get that full employee experience, even though HR professionals are employees of the organization as well. And so I feel like I keep falling for that trap over and over. And I've been in positions where I was like either a department of one or I was up the management chain. So I was at a different level where, my purpose was to give that, guidance and help the leaders in the organization be better for the employees. But then when it comes to, I've got an issue that I need solved and I need to go to leadership with it, then it's like, oh, Christina's kind of cranky. or, whatever. And I'm just like, I struggle with navigating that relationship in the right way when you've built kind of a horizontal relationship, but then you still need them to be your leadership and upper management. I don't know if other people have that issue. That's just a trap that I keep falling into, I think, with my last 5 positions, which is probably all of my grown-up positions.
No, that makes sense, because when you were talking, I was thinking about how HR is kind of stuck in the middle. We have issues or problems or things that we need to solve. We have, in a sense of the word, we lack trust from both areas. So we lack trust from employees, because you have everyone, in which people have had bad experiences with HR. We can't get away from that. But then on top of that, you have even some HR leaders, or some that claim to be HR leaders, talking about how much people and employees should hate HR. And then at the same time, you also have the leadership team, who don't necessarily, like you were saying, they don't always see you as an actual employee. Like in many ways, I feel like leadership kind of sees HR as the corporate attorney. It's the person that they call on when they know, like, okay, I really got to have an answer for this. So let me call the corporate attorney to figure it out. But anytime other than that, that corporate attorney doesn't exist. And I kind of feel like leadership does that with HR. And in a lot of cases, it's, hey, this employee is having a problem. You need to fix it. And then go plan a company picnic, and we'll call you in like 3 months later.
It's wild that you will treat us like a formally trained corporate attorney and an intern who plans events. But whatever. Yeah, well, so we've talked about this a little bit before, and not just that. I mean, and yes, people have had bad experiences with HR, but I think that, you should expect to have to gain people's trust whenever you're new to an organization. So I just kind of carry that into my newness of a position, not necessarily in the role of HR, but I do think that people have to get to know what you're capable of before they can properly trust you to do the things that you're there to do. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just screwed up, and that's how I see everyone else. So that's how I come into the role. But specifically when, thinking back to a couple of the leaders that I've had, like, obviously I would have, like, I interviewed with them before we got to a position where I was expected to provide some type of guidance or recommendations to them. So like we started building that trust in the interview. And you get so candid with these leaders when you work with them on a regular basis. At least I do. And that's part of my own, demise. Like I will always do that. So I'll always end up in the same situation. But I need a leader who's going to understand, like, I'm coming to you because I see this as a problem for the organization or for myself. And I need you to put your, let's call it the CEO hat on, and like solve a problem with me like I'm an employee, not just someone who solves all of your other problems. Because some problems I can't solve. Some problems I have to bring to you for you to solve. And so I especially am candid when they have gotten comfortable and candid with me. So I feel like, well, there's obviously some trust here. And this is a safe space for us to have this honest conversation, because you have to, I believe that you have to have honest conversations to be able to move forward or come to a long-term solution, not just a quick Band-Aid. And I think that sometimes when we do go to leadership with some honest scenarios, some honest, problems, challenges, and feedback, that sometimes the first thing leadership does is get defensive, and it derails the entire, when they can't get out of that defensive mode, I don't think you can get anywhere.
Yeah, that's completely true. And I think that's the hard part is that in some ways, CEOs and presidents of organizations are seeing um they're seeing it from what the organization is doing and not necessarily the people who are making sure that the organization is able to do these things that it's doing so much. um I think mm, I was just thinking about one of my one of my leaders in this conversation, and so it's kind of like maybe that's how they're seeing it, but um yeah.
Well, who are you thinking? Tell me about the leader you're thinking of.
Well, see, like when we talked about this topic, when we talked about how we were going to have this topic, I automatically knew the leader that I was going to talk about. Like I had the story. But now I'm thinking about someone completely different that I've left the organization recently. It doesn't make me see them in a different light. I still believe that they are the person that they showed me that they are, but sometimes leaders don't take off that CEO president hat um, to figure out what the problem is and understand that their employees are not making the same amount of money they're making. They're not necessarily running in the same circles that they're running in, and that they have to figure out how to not only be responsible for the organization, but also responsible and respectful to the employees that are really holding this organization together and doing the work.
I think that we've all had at least one leader we can think of that we're like, oh gosh, this was a terrible leader and never want to work for someone like this. For me, it's helpful because I can kind of like hang on to that and be like, okay, remember that, because when you're leading someone else, you don't want to make someone feel the way this person made you and your peers feel. Because I can steamroll over anyone. Like once I'm focused and I'm ready to get some work done, I can just move forward and like take out everything in my path. So it's good for me to see these examples of bad leadership and really live in that moment so that I can apply it to my own leadership skills. But I think that I wish we could all celebrate more good leaders that we had. And I haven't had very many good leaders just because I think this is what I was going to say earlier that we've talked about before. Sometimes in our role, we get to see behind the curtain, and we see some stuff that maybe we don't necessarily agree with, but the ownership or the executive level team doesn't understand why we don't agree with that. And it's because kind of like what you're saying, like maybe we don't run in the same circles, we're not at the same salary grade, we don't get the same perks once the company hits this size or hits this revenue or whatever. And so that's kind of not how we're approaching it. We have been trained and it's been very trendy and it's been really really pushed out there that we try to help job seekers like really feel like you want to find a place that cares about you. You want to find a place where you enjoy the work, where you enjoy the people, where you feel valued, all of these things. And I think that two things can be true at the same time, right? A company can do all of that for an employee, right? Create this environment where an employee just really feels valued and they look forward to going to work. They're happy to contribute to what they're working on. All of that can be true at the same time that you're trying to hit your business growth goals. But when you focus on your business growth goals, you need to think of the employees that are carrying it out and not just like, okay, well, if they don't like it, we're just going to replace them. I think that you can have it both ways, because when you're looking at the employees, you're thinking about your business growth goals. So when you're looking at your business growth goals, think about your employees. I think that it's that simple to me. And sometimes leadership is so disconnected from what the employees are experiencing and what's important to them that they trail away from that. And they just think HR is going to like keep everybody back in that little lane and be looking forward to coming to work and excited. And then next thing you know, the whole team knows that you have an opinion that goes against the majority of the staff. And now we have chaos because no one wants to work here anymore.
Right. And so some of the things that you just said and that you said previously, just it really hit on one of the leaders that I'm talking about. So, and this was not even like a CEO executive, like this was a general manager of, a company. And I, we had like maybe 4 general managers come into that role within like 2 years. It was so bad and they were trying to find the perfect fit, but this person that they hired and stayed on for as long as I can remember, which was about 2 or 3, maybe 2 years before I actually left the organization. And he came in, and I've always been the type of person when I come into an organization, even now as an HR professional, when I come into an organization, I want to understand that organization. I want to understand why you do the things that you do.
Mhm.
If something needs to be changed, if immediately, then okay, we can make that change. But my main purpose when I first come into something is to understand it. Um, and I've always hated, like, every time I think about this general manager, I can always remember that he automatically came in, and he came in with that attitude of, you're going to respect me. I am now the general manager of this store. You're going to respect me. And it's just like, that's not how respect works, sir. So let's get
I demand respect.
like, that is not how it works. And then I think it kept building on issues that he was having. But the organization, he reached like the 6-month mark, which was the longest that a general manager had been there, in these 2 to 3 years. So the organization was just like, we're gonna keep him. We're just gonna, y'all will
He's
get
the
over it.
one.
Yeah. Y'all will get over whatever issues you have with them. We're gonna keep him. He actually stayed and he keeps coming back to work. So that's good enough for us. And
Oh.
nope, that should not be a thing. That should not be the reason that you're keeping this person. And I remember so I was an assistant manager, and like, I was on night shift, so I would have to close down the store. And then he happened to come in the next day after closing. And it was a Saturday that I closed. So I'm certain I didn't close it very well. But I know, like, that Friday night he closed. And then I had to do like a full day shift. So I had to open that Saturday and close. And then when he came in on Sunday and I came in my afternoon shift, I can remember him sitting me down. This might be petty of me. Like, this might be, I was young in my career. It was a lot of growth still needed. But he wrote me up. He wrote me up for not closing
Oh.
the store um, the way that he would have found acceptable to close the store. And
Mhm.
I can just remember, like, looking at him, looking at the write up, and he was like, so here's your write up. You can sign it, and I think this is probably like the first write up I ever received. And I looked at him and I was like, so when you closed the store Friday night and I came in here Saturday and the store wasn't clean, are you getting rolled up for that too? And he was just like, well, no, because I'm the general manager. I was like, that don't
Oh
make sense. We're both at fault here. So I'm gonna need you to take
right.
my write up when you want me to take my write up.
That's so funny. So really, you were trying to communicate to him, like, you did it. I didn't think there was a problem because you did it. Why am I in trouble? Why are we being held to the same standards? And I think that is a very common leader mistake. And maybe rightfully so, if you're at a higher level or you're the owner of a company, maybe, the rules don't apply to you, but you can't be shocked when you see your team mimic your behavior. I I always think about that because the owner of the staffing company that I worked for, one time when he came, every now and then they would just, him and the vice president would get in the car and they would just drive around to the different offices. Our offices were all in the Southeast. And so they like had like a route they would go.
Wait, before you finish the story, did y'all call each other and be like, hey, Johnny and Don were here, so they're coming here?
For sure. You know what? Because I'm gonna tell you, even the managers who didn't like other managers would call and give that heads up, because none of us were here for their BS, because even the smallest office worked hard. Okay. So none of us were trying to be like caught by surprise doing anything. But yeah, we did we did call each other. And we typically knew their route too, just because it wasn't always easy. Like, we had a location in Decatur and a location in Huntsville and a location in Sheffield. And so like, we knew if they headed over here, all three of us were going to get a visit. Mm-hmm. But that didn't necessarily mean that, Cookeville, Tennessee was going to get a visit in the same day. Mm-hmm. Theirs might be like the next day.
Yeah.
So we had a little system worked out. But he popped in and he sat down with me, and usually when we had a one-on-one, it was for him to tell me I was doing a good job because it was making him a shit ton of money. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think anything of it, but he comes and he sits down, and he always had a cigar in his hand, even if it wasn't lit. And I don't understand cigar smokers, so maybe that's what you guys do. And he's sitting there, and I remember he always wore loafers and no socks, and it stresses me out. They should get like the little no-show socks like we have for our tinnies, but whatever. And he said, Christina, why would you cuss in staff meeting? And I was like, huh? And he was just really like, I can't believe you would say shit in a staff meeting. And I was like, I'm sorry. That's weird that you know that, but I'm sorry. And I guess somebody was upset about it and didn't feel like they could come to me. And so the complaint got to corporate, which was weird because I also had a local area manager, so she could have handled it. But I don't know, maybe she didn't want to deal with me either. Not 1 minute later, he said GD in the conversation 3 times, almost back to back. And I'm just sitting there looking at him like, if that's the kind of environment I'm supposed to create for my staff, where we don't swear and we do, whatever, then why aren't you creating that environment for me? Because for one, it was my first management job, and everything was me figuring it out as I went. So what I knew, I literally learned from upper management where I was. I mean, there are some things that you just know and you don't, like some things are just going to come through in your personality. And I swear a lot. However, if I knew that it offended somebody on the payroll, I wouldn't have done it. And I wouldn't have made a big deal out of it either. I would have just moved right along. But I never stopped thinking about how I got in trouble for saying a lesser of a cuss word than he would say when he would sit down with me, or when we would have corporate meetings at the corporate office with all of the office managers. So, it's just, I didn't know how to make him see like, you're kind of responsible for teaching me how to be a manager. So maybe some of that can be through your actions, not just through what you tell me. Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them, and some of them, especially, I feel like, especially higher ups, are in that mindset of, I don't need to teach it to you. I sign your paycheck, so you just figure it out. But you figure it out and make sure it's the way that I want it done.
Right. I can figure it out, but that sometimes means there's consequences for you because this is your business, not mine.
Yeah. So
leadership,
I mean, I feel like that's why so many people have bad stories. Like even now, like, if we sit down, I can think of 2.5 great leaders that I've had.
2.5. I'm gonna need you to explain this half to me, Jasmine. What the heck?
I'm the person a whole, so I can think of 3 great leaders that I've had. But you don't always, when you're going through, something, you don't always think about, the good leaders that you've had. You just automatically think about the ones that, made you, stay up working until 8 o'clock at night. You think about the ones that never stopped ringing your phone or texting you when they needed you to do something. And even though it was something that could have waited until, Monday or the next business day. You think about the leaders that say the most outrageous things to you and think it's okay and be like, oh, well, I've been here for 85 years, so it's all good. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? All of those, though, I think are very like simple examples that you just said. But the funniest thing to me is I think about like leaders who call after hours or text after hour. And sometimes you sign up for a position that will require you to be available outside of normal business hours, but hopefully you have discussed that and negotiated that up front or along the way, so there's no surprises. And you can still have a clear boundary, like, okay, you need me on Saturdays, but I'm not talking to you on Sundays, whatever that looks like for you. But I had a CEO who just knew no boundaries at all. Okay. And everyone, the entire team that like reported directly to him, and most of everyone's team that reported directly to him, was working like crazy. Okay. Working a ton of overtime, trying to get stuff out the door, trying to get some deliverables met. And it's over here, just texting at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. And I'm like, okay, they have worked 60 hours already this week. I need you to please not text them at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. And don't start no group text at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, because if one sucker replies, then we're all trapped in there and you can't turn it off. But I understand that you think sending a text message on a Saturday at 6 a.m. means they can look at it and reply whenever they want. But what I need you to know is you're the CEO or you're the big boss or whatever that role is. So they feel compelled to read what you sent. So instead, just don't send it. Save it for Monday.
You can still type it out on a little note. Can you schedule text messages yet? I don't know, but I know you can type a little note in the reminders and say, hey, this is something that I want to address on Monday at 9:15 a.m.
There you go. Probably would have still been 6 a.m., but I was going to take what I could get, right? So, I finally make some progress on those 6 a.m., Saturday texts to the group and to the other managers and like, hey, like really, it is very important that people unplug, and you're invading their unplugged time. Like this is their weekly unplugged time. So you don't need to invade it. I need leaders to understand that when we do that as HR, when we're telling you something on behalf of the employees that's not good for the employees, just assume that includes us as well. just for fun. Let's pretend that means me. And that means don't text me at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. However, me personally, I have no problem ignoring your Saturday morning text.
Yeah, I can very quickly, very, very quickly.
Let's practice that on the HR person who's supporting you as well. Let's just see if maybe we can make a note for Monday morning for her as well, or him, or whoever. So anyway, I feel like I've rambled enough about some leadership don'ts. And Jasmine has upgraded a person from a half a person to a whole person. So I think it's time to wrap this episode up.
Oh, it is, because now we got to go and get ready for BakedHR live on Instagram.
We sure do.
So if you all are not following us currently, then you need to go and follow us. Find us on BakedHR at BakedHR on Instagram. We go live every Sunday, well, pretty much every Sunday, at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Which I looked it up to confirm is 8 o'clock for our DC friends.
Okay.
That's 8. I don't know what time zone you're in DC, but I Googled what time is it now in DC.
Yeah, it's Eastern, Central, Midwest, and then
okay. So DC is Eastern, so it's 8 o'clock Eastern. Yeah. 7 Central, 8 o'clock Eastern.
So make sure that you go and follow us on BakedHR Instagram, and then make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching right now. And if you have a question, if you know, we were talking about something about leadership even over this week that you saw, and something that you want us to address, then definitely send us an email at bakedhr@gmail.com. So this is it for tonight's episode on leadership, and we'll see y'all hopefully on the BakedHR Live soon.
Bye.
Bye.